Hello, this is psychicpodcasts.com. I'm Psychic Sahar. Hello, and welcome to our second interview with Dr. PMH Atwater. Today, we're discussing her book published in 1995 entitled Future Memory: How Those Who See the Future Shed New Light on the Workings of the Human Mind. Her book is not about the future, but rather about exploring certain shifts in one's awareness of reality. It is about living the future in the present tense. How does this affect our brain and our consciousness? You're about to find out. Hello, Dr. Atwater. Nice talking to you again, and thank you for being with us at psychicpodcasts.com.
Well, it's my privilege to be here.
It was so interesting and wonderful to talk to you that it got me thinking about a lot of things, and the more I experience your work and read material written by you, the more it gets me to focus on the brain and what happens to the brain, what you call the brain shift.
Right.
And today I would specifically like to discuss with you your Future Memory book, How Those Who See the Future Shed New Light on the Workings of the Human Mind.
You picked a big one. I call it my adventure book.
Your adventure book. I like that. I like that. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about it, or maybe what you experienced, or the brain shift?
Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about the book.
Yes, please.
The book is not a book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to sound kind of weird and strange, but that's okay because that's the truth. The book is the only book I've ever written that is mathematically calculated on the format of a labyrinth. It is a real labyrinth. By that I mean every sentence, every paragraph, every page is part of the math. It is a true, real labyrinth. Therefore, like a real sight labyrinth, when you open the book and start reading, you have to read it straight through. You can't skip read. You have to stay on the path. It's it's the same way when you're walking a sight labyrinth, and that sight labyrinth, the path will unfold on you again and again and again. Just when you think you know where you're going, the path unfolds and goes back or goes another direction. You'll find that the book is the same identical way and for the same reason. So if you read the book straight through and don't skip around, you'll get the benefit of the book. And the benefit of that labyrinth book is it enables you to lift up or move up to your next highest state of consciousness possible for you at that time. So it's literally a brain changer. It was written that way and done that way with guidance from that particular voice that spoke to me in my third near-death experience. It showed me how to do it, went down and did it, and the book sold within a week after. I've spent years trying to get that book published. Nobody would touch it.
Really?
And I was about ready to throw the thing away, even though I'd done all that research and everything. I had myself convinced, well, I guess I just did the research for myself. Apparently it's not for anybody else. So on the very day I had decided to throw the manuscript away was the very day that voice came through. And it said, turn it into a labyrinth, and then it showed me how to do it.
Amazing.
And it took a couple of months to do the job, and I submitted it to the publisher, and it sold in 1 week. So, it was to be that way. And so it's really not a book, it's a psychotronic device. It's a living, breathing organism that actually works on you as you read the book.
That's really amazing.
So, and all of your people over there in England who are interested in things like Shakespeare will love the book because there's a special appendices in the back of the book that gives you a detailed evidence and implications and indications that the real Shakespeare was actually Edward de Vere. I believe he was the 17th Earl of Oxford, and not Bacon or all these other people that they think was Shakespeare. So all of the reasons why it was Edward de Vere are in the book.
That's really interesting.
So there's a lot of things in that book. A whole lot of things are in there. Charts, all kinds of fascinating reading. But if we get past the book itself and discussions about how it was written and how it functions as a labyrinth, let's talk about the material.
Yes.
And the reason I got into it, and I did more research on that book than any other project I've ever tackled,
Right.
is because I kept noticing in my work with the near-death experiencers, and with myself too, because I'm also an experiencer, that most of us began to live the future before it occurred. I did not say know it.
Right.
I said live it.
Yes.
And in detail.
So we're not talking about precognition or anything, or
no.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about precognition. We're not talking about forecasting or prophecy or clairvoyance or clairaudience. We're talking, and we're not talking déjà vu,
Yeah.
which is past-oriented. We're talking about a very peculiar, and I've come to find out later on it's really not all that peculiar, but for some reason nobody's focused on it, or they've called it something else.
Right.
We're talking about a phenomenon that certainly is subjective, but it's sensory rich. It includes each movement, thought, smell, taste, decision, sight, and sound of regular physical living. And when the phenomenon is occurring, there's no way that you can tell the difference between this future event you're living in advance and regular physical living.
Amazing.
You just simply can't tell at all that it's occurring because it's totally physical and completely a lived event.
Am I right in saying this is what you call or refer to as coexistence of frequencies?
Well, you might call it that. I just simply call it the future memory phenomenon.
Yes.
And I'd like to talk a little bit about what I found seemed to be the major pattern of how it occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for some people it occurred in the dream state, but for most people, Sahar,
while they're living,
it occurred while they were wide awake.
Amazing.
And physically active. Now, not creative. I didn't find anybody that was involved in anything creative, but things, more mundane things, like vacuuming or washing dishes or sitting down on a chair or getting up or walking or, But active. People were not in some kind of trance state.
Right.
They were active, and that's what fascinated me. There's always a physical sensation at onset. So something like a rush of heat or an exhilaration or a lift or a burst or ringing in their ears or something. That tells you right away that it's physical and it's involving the brain. Right there, right now, you know that brain chemicals are switching and moving. Right there. Okay, the next thing usually is present time-space relationships freeze in place. It's like the world around you just sort of freezes in place. Things become brighter. Your faculties heighten. Sometimes sparkles fill up in the air.
Yes.
And there's this sense that everything is expanding. Space expands, but not time. Time shrinks away. Time disappears.
That's
and
interesting.
Space expands. And then the future memory episode temporarily overlays the present. When it's over, it quits. It ends just quickly as it started. There are after effects. There's that sensation of being startled or chilled. Again, chemicals. You know that chemicals are working in the brain.
Yes.
The event remains vivid as long as it remains in awareness, but eventually it is either forgotten or set aside. Later on, after it occurs, there's usually usually when it actually physically occurs, you don't recognize it at first until there's some kind of signal or something in it that brings it to memory, and then it's all back. and this sense of being spooky or strange or weird or, how did this happen? And it leaves a person with that sense of mystery and awe. And one of the things I've noticed is that people who have them feel that the future memory episodes enrich their life and enliven their life while imparting a sense of purpose and a meaning to their life. It seems to be like a gentle nudge to help them live life more sensibly and responsibly. It reestablishes a natural rhythm to how their life unfolds.
Yes.
It leaves them with a keen sense that each person and each activity matters no matter who you are and what you do. Now let me give you just a brief example.
Yes.
Because there's nothing like an example.
Yes.
There was this woman in the state of Washington. And she was doing dishes or something mundane like this. And she lived that night. Now, this is earlier in the afternoon. So she pre-lived that night a segment of her own future whereby her husband was going to a meeting, had to drive, and there was a serious accident, and the car was totaled.
Amazing.
And she was very, very alarmed. So therefore, that night, when it really came to be that night, she intervened. She went with him to the meeting. She drove the car, and nothing happened. So she felt like, oh, wow, I was able to avoid this. Well, several nights a little later, he went to another meeting at night. She didn't know about that one in advance. There was a serious accident, and he totaled the car.
Amazing.
So her intervening changed the timing.
Right.
It didn't change
the event. Yes, that's interesting.
And, I can give you all kinds of these kinds. What happens with future memory?
Yes.
Is segments of your own future, not somebody else's future,
yes,
come into fruition. They manifest. And I was wondering in my own mind, okay, it happens when people are wide awake and active. You get segments of your own future. Once in a while you get something major, but it's usually always your own future, and it's segments that are going to happen down the road a piece.
Right.
It's not, some kind of big warning that some kind of 747 is going to crash, or the terrorists are going to do this or that.
Yes, it's a personal experience.
It seems, like regular, like mundane, like what's the purpose of this? So I started asking a lot of people, what do you think the purpose of this is? And for the most part, these are the answers I got. They considered it a pre-happening, a preview. It was an advanced practice session. It was a learning experience. A chance to experiment with other possibilities in living. It was a window to your own future. And what I've noticed, let me tell you some of the things I've noticed. I've been doing a lot of research with children. I've been for a long time.
Yes.
And I want to share this with you. Children in the process of temporal lobe development, it's that section of the brain located at or near the temples, are almost entirely future-oriented. By the age of 4, the average child is so attuned to the future that he or she will spend the majority of waking hours projecting into future events to pre-live acts and encounters in advance. This is one of the major ways a child uses to explore and practice living. It's what gives them continuity. It's what establishes integrity to their environment. It's what enables them, again, to practice the future before it occurs. Well, I got to thinking, I've actually been researching transformative events since the 60s.
Right.
I've been doing near-death research since 1978, but I've been doing the others since the 60s.
Right.
And So I'm privy to things like Kundalini breakthroughs and vision quests and whether the transformation happened quickly or whether it happened gently, like for instance in prayer and meditation and religious disciplines and so forth and so on, or if a person just simply made up their mind they wanted to be a better person and was really committed to that. So this idea of slow and gentle or turbulent.
Right.
And I began to notice that things like future memory are typical after effects of any type of transformative experience. And I began to look further and deeper at that.
Yes.
And I began to recognize that we do the same thing after an event like that.
Yes.
That children do when they're really young. They're trying to establish continuity and integrity of their environment. They're trying to practice in advance so they'll know how to behave. They'll know how to perform. They'll know what to expect. When people come back from a transformative experience, especially an impactful one, they're still on the other side. Let's face it. You're still on the other side. You're still floating. You're so expanded that you really, you have a tough time fitting back in. There's no such thing as life as always for a while. My research has established that it takes a minimum of 7 years to begin to integrate these kinds of experiences.
Absolutely.
And that has now been validated in clinical prospective studies that were published in the Lancet of all things. Hey, kiddo, I made the Lancet. They mentioned me in my books in the Lancet. I thought, right.
Yes.
I made a medical journal. Well, anyway, meanwhile, back at the ranch. Imagine in your mind, or at least put into your mind right now, that this idea, this reality, this feeling, the impact of especially a sudden spiritual experience.
Yes.
Afterward, you're disoriented. I mean, you really are. You try to go forth with life as always. You communicate, but people don't understand what you're saying.
Yes.
You go to work. People don't understand how you've changed at work.
Yes.
They want to know what's wrong with you or what's going on with you. You're different. You begin to talk differently. You begin to act differently. Your body begins to feel different. You begin to think different.
Yeah.
They really change you on a physical as well as a psychological manner. How appropriate it is that nature, our bodies, our brain-mind assembly knows what to do.
Yes.
It flings us or sweeps us or enables us to go back to that same mode of brain-mind development we had as children.
Yes.
So that we can once again re-enter the earth plane or enter the earth plane again, this time as a different person, or at least a changed person, and be able to function in a clear and coherent manner. So I consider future memory episodes to be absolutely necessary and healthy and appropriate to the transformative process. But do you know, there was a fellow, James Van Avery, or James Avery, I forget his name right now, but I met him, and he was able to cause them. He was able to make them happen. So there's a whole chapter in the book, Future Memory, on his methods of being able to cause them. And it's sort of practice makes perfect kind of thing, you know, like learning to play the piano.
Right.
You had to do chopsticks for a while.
Right.
He has all of these steps, and if you follow the steps, if you're committed to following the steps, you can actually cause them.
You're able to trigger these future experiences.
Yes. You're able to cause them, and you're able to cause or facilitate or help to facilitate the change these experiences
Change the brain as well.
enable in the brain-mind assembly.
Right. Right, I understand. So really what I hear you saying is that our brain is equipped, if you like, to be used in that way. And by experiencing...
Our whole body.
Yes.
Our whole body.
Our whole body is.
You know, our body's intelligent. Let's face it.
Right.
You know, when we're talking about health, if you will just recognize the intelligence of the body and work with that, you'll be a lot healthier, or at least you'll get well quicker if you got sick.
Right.
And so, this is what I'm recognizing in my research, is that our body, which includes our brain-mind assembly, that's part of the package we're wearing as souls, incarnated into the earth plane right now, or sojourning through the earth plane right now.
Yes.
These packages, these wonderful temples we inhabit called a body.
Yes.
This body is not some innate piece of meat.
Yes.
This body is
it's an active, yes, and it plays an interactive role, doesn't it?
Wow. And it knows what to do when we need that difference or alteration or shift. It knows what to do. And these wonderful phenomenons that occur are they're really part of the natural process if you recognize what the natural process is.
Yes.
We are literally, all of us, set up by virtue of our physiology to transform our consciousness when it is time for us to do so.
That's wonderful.
We are set up with the proper systems that enable us to go through these changes.
Yes.
In other words, we can spiritualize ourselves.
That's an amazing thought.
Isn't that great?
It's an absolutely profound thought.
We're not trapped.
Yes.
We think we're trapped, and woe is me, and the world is, you know, I'm a victim, and you know,
I can't change things, I'm stuck, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's not true. You can change your life. And of course, the simplest, best way to do it is simply to commit to that, to think that, to affirm that, to intend that. If that's your intention, then you're going to be led some way, somehow. You're going to be guided, you're going to be shown, or something's going to happen that's going to enable you to participate in that process that you were born to do.
And your book, of course, outlines different techniques of how any reader can use and can cause or trigger these experiences.
And what it's all about, Alfie, you know?
Yes.
Like the famous song, what's it all about, Alfie?
Absolutely.
Well, get a hold of the book Future Memory. It was published by Hampton Roads. It's readily available. You can get it off my website, or you can get it directly from any bookstore.
Yes, and of course there's more information on your website as well.
My website is www.pmhatwater.com. So it's my name.com.
Absolutely. Dr. Atwater, I'm grateful for your time. It's fascinating to talk to you again, and I shall look forward to more occasions in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.